Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm Steve, I'm a health and performance coach, and in this video I'll be showing you exactly how to level up your HYROX competition race. I'll be giving you tips on each individual station of the race and how you can improve it with using technique, better technique, and using correct strength and conditioning methods to get the best out of your race. Now, the HYROX race is a combination of cardiovascular fitness, strength, power, muscular endurance, and of course, hard work. But it's really important that if you are going to compete and race and fulfill your athletic potential, you need to train smart. So I'm going to give you one or two little tips on each station and exercise so that you can maximize your race time. So let's get started. So overall, there are 8 1-kilometer runs. Now, yes, you are only doing 1 kilometer at a time. However, you need to be able to withstand doing 8Ks over the hour or 2-hour period that you run. So it's very important that we train to be able to tolerate that much work. I would highly recommend 1 day a week doing a long, continuous, steady state run. Now that run, depending on your fitness level and ability, it could be anywhere from 30 minutes up to an hour and a half, 90 minutes. Now you can measure time, you can measure distance, and over time and as you progress, you can increase both of those measures. Now by doing this style of work, you will be increasing what's known as your aerobic capacity. Now that aerobic base is very important because the greater the aerobic base, the less fatigue you're going to induce over the long period. And what's important about that aerobic base is that when you do your strength and power exercises and even in your training plan, you'll be able to recover better. So an aerobic base will be the foundation of your whole race and competition. The second way to improve your 1K run and those 8Ks over the whole competition is to train the anaerobic system. Now this will simply be using interval-based methods. For example, you can use 30 seconds on and 60 seconds off. That is a 1-to-2 work to rest ratio. Alternatively, if you're a bit more intermediate, you could use a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio by simply going 30 seconds of running and 30 seconds of slow paced work. Now, because of the nature of anaerobic training and work, you do not want to work for any more than 20 to 30 minutes. If you are working for more than that, you're not really going to be maximizing your anaerobic capacity and potential. So just to summarize that, to improve your 1K run along with the 8 rounds of it, you need to improve both of those areas, the aerobic base for 30 to 90 minutes of steady state cardio and your anaerobic work by using an interval based method. Do not neglect your aerobic base and your aerobic conditioning because if it sucks, you're gonna suck on race day. Next up will be the SkiErg. Now the SkiErg, you'll have to do 1,000 meters. So the SkiErg is an upper body dominant exercise. Yes, there is an element of hips and legs, but it is say 75-80% upper body dominant, in particular lats and triceps. Now, if you can improve the base level of strength and power of your back and arms, your triceps, you'll have an easier time pulling that 1,000 meters. So if you are struggling to get that SkiErg split time down, the 2-3 exercises that I highly recommend is firstly the chin up, upper body pull to strengthen the back, the pullover, that could be a cable or a dumbbell pullover to improve this overhead pulling strength, and lastly a tricep dip to improve your ability to drive downwards. Obviously we take the SkiErg from overhead and we pull it down and drive into this position. So those exercises are probably, in my opinion, the 3 exercises that need to be a fundamental practice for improving strength and power on the SkiErg. Next up is the sled push. Now in the men's pro category, you're gonna have to push a 202 kilo sled. Now in the women's category, I think it's about 50 kilos less. And in the general category for men and women, again, it might be about 50 kilos less load. Regardless of what category you're racing in, those are heavy ass weights. Therefore, you have to be strong. Now at this point in the race, your cardiovascular system is going to be taxed. Therefore, your strength and power system is going to be somewhat limited. So the 2 tips I'm going to give you to improve your sled push is, first of all, making sure you're using the right technique. If you aren't using a nice tight flat back position, you're going to dissipate power, energy, force, and you're going to create what's called an energy leak. Now, my preferred option is to have a bent arm position because it gives you an opportunity to create a nice short stride length and create rhythm. Now, you can use a straight arm position, which will give you a longer stride position. However, the cost is a slower turnover and less use of the knee flexors and hip extensors. Now, when you do have a straight arm position, the mass of the weight is going to be further away from the mass of you, which again makes it a little bit harder, in my opinion, to create rhythm and momentum. Remember, when you're doing the sled push, it's all about creating a rhythmic motion and creating momentum. You do not want to be stopping and starting when you are sled pushing. In terms of how you apply the force, you want to make sure that your leg is driving diagonally into the ground. You do not want to apply too much horizontal force. You're going to slip, you're not going to create friction with your foot and grip and apply the force in the correct way. So apply a diagonal force downwards, and again, depending on your body position, this will dictate how you apply force into the ground. So making sure you practice your setup will have a nice transfer. Actually, a good technique could be to start by using straight arms. As you fatigue, go into a bent arm and give yourself a little bit more mechanical leverage. Now, the second tip to improve your sled push is to simply get your legs very, very strong. Now, I highly recommend you use the front squat because it will have a nice transfer to that pushing exercise as well as other exercises in the competition, but also use step ups with a bar on the front or the back of the shoulders. Now, step ups will improve single leg unilateral leg strength, which when you're pushing a sled, that's what it's all about. It's about how much force and power production you can produce through one leg at a time. If you aren't training single leg, definitely put it into your training program. These sleds are heavy, man. Next up is the sled pull. Now, for the pro men, I think it's somewhere around 150, 153 kilos. For the females, a little bit less, and then for those other categories, again, a little bit less. Now, most of the strategies you'll see being used in these competitions and races is a crouched position, a bent knee, soft hips, and this bent down position. Now, that's good because you're going to be able to utilize your legs and hip power. Now, with the upper body, you want to create an element of rotation so that we are using rotational power and rotational force. Obviously, you need a good strong grip, you need strong biceps, but also a very strong back. You do not want to have your hips so far back that it's just all upper body dominant. You want to be in this hip power position and then creating a rotational pull as you go and create rhythm. Now, a few tips on improving your sled drag is when you are far out from your competition and race, use a seated position when you're training the sled pull. Now, a seated position will maximize the use of the upper body and minimize the use of the hips and legs. Now, that's a nice way to get the grip and arms and back stronger. And as you get closer to your competition, stand up. You could actually go to your knees and then stand up and then work on that upper body rotational movement whilst using the legs and hips. Of course, other ways to maximize your sled pull would be to do more postural work and more posterior chain work, more chin-ups, more pullovers, more dumbbell rows, etc. Now, next up is the burpee broad jump. Now, in my opinion, this is all about creating rhythm and using your body's momentum for each next repetition. If you don't do that and you keep stopping and starting, you're going to make it very, very difficult for yourself. So, start by working on the explosive push-up, okay? Being able to go down and rapidly push yourself back up by using the chest and arms. Now, obviously, when you do the broad jump, leg power, hip power is essential. You have to have it. But again, like I said, if rhythm is the goal here, it doesn't matter how far you jump. If you are doing a couple of really long jumps and then you're getting so taxed that you have to stop for seconds, it's pointless. It's better to do a good solid push-up, explosive push-up, burpee, get back up and do a short jump and just be more rhythmic as you go through that. Now, if you can maintain rhythm, you're also going to conserve energy. Next, the 1,000-meter row. Now, the rower is predominantly a hip and lower body exercise. However, some of you may be pulling with a very arm and upper body dominant pattern. Now, that will just depend on you, although if you can use your legs and hips, you're going to be way more efficient. The 1,000-meter row is really going to tax the quads and the glutes and the lower back. Now, if you are fatiguing in those muscles after your run and after the sled push and the sled drag, then you can try using this butterfly technique that I just made up to really let the legs recover and tax the groins a little bit more. Or you simply pull your knees out to the side and you lean more forward and use a little bit more of the upper body. That will just allow your quads and your glutes to recover. However, if you do this technique, you will be moving a little bit slower, but that's okay because a slower pace will allow you to recover for the remaining race. Now, a simple way to improve your rowing ability is to train your anaerobic system. There are two ways we can do this. The first way is to use the alactic pathway, and the other way is to use the lactic pathway. Both of these systems require the aerobic system to help you recover, which is why, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, you must train that aerobic system. The most important thing here when you're training this quality is that your intensity and effort is really, really high every single rep. So ideally above 90% every single time. And also that you use long rest periods so that you can maximize power output, and slightly shorter rest periods when you want to improve the capacity output. And lastly, and probably the most important thing, is when you are doing this type of training, the anaerobic style training, it's not just about the quantity of work, it's all about the quality. It's all about the intensity that you're training and can you maintain that intensity, but also the work to rest ratio. Now, an example to improve your lactic energy production and endurance ability is to jump on the rower and do 200 meters as fast as possible, and then take a 2 to 3 minute break and repeat that a few times. Now, obviously, like I said, you have to work as hard as you can and take a nice long rest period. Next up is the 200 meter farmer carry. Now, of course, if you want to have a good, efficient farmer carry, you need a really good, strong grip. But as well as having a strong grip, you also need a strong lower back and strong overall postural muscles in the posterior chain. Now, early on in your preparation for your competition, when you're far away from your competition, 12 weeks out or plus, use different grip implements. Use kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells, trap bars, ropes, and these sort of things. As you get closer to your competition, then get a bit more specific and start using heavier dumbbells. Now, for strengthening your posture, stick to the basics, the chin-ups, the rows, the pulls, etc. And to strengthen your lower back, the 3-4 exercises I highly recommend is the Romanian deadlift, the barbell good morning, and the back extension. Now, those 3 exercises will do wonders to develop your hips and your lower back. Now, they will also have a transfer to the rower, to the sleds, to everything, okay? So a real strong posterior chain and hip area will have a great transfer to all of your competitive exercises. The 100 meter sandbag lunges. Now, your sandbag will be about 30 kilos. It will probably be less for the females and other competitors, but if you're in the pro, it's about 30 kilos. Now, those are walking lunges. They are hard. If you are early on in your prep phase, I highly recommend you do lots of single leg work, lots of split squats, and lots of step ups, barbell, dumbbell, different variations of these step ups and split squats. As you get closer to the competition, start introducing alternating lunges, start introducing walking lunges. When you do a walking lunge or an alternating lunge, it's a lot more power based than just doing split squats and stationary split squats. And when you are doing walking lunges, you are using a ton of hips and glutes. So again, the single leg work with those other exercises that are for the hips are essential. And lastly, we have the 100 wall balls. Now, you're only using a 9 kilo or less load. It's nothing. This is all about rhythm and flowing. If you break pattern with, if you drop the ball or you don't go low enough or you mess up your technique, that's going to cost you so much energy expenditure and time. Okay, so we want to make sure that we just have a nice silky technique and a smooth rhythmic movement. So some of the exercises that transfer well to this, apart from practicing the actual skill of a wall ball, is to practice dumbbell and barbell thrusters. So overall, there is a ton of tips you can go and try. Now, I have used all of these with my pro HYROX athlete with success. What's important to understand is that as you get close to your competition, your exercises need to get more power-based and more specific. And when you're 12 weeks out plus from your competition, they can have more variation. They could be very, very different to the competitive lifts. Now, the most important thing that I want you to get from this video is that whether you're working on your strength, your power, your endurance, or your energy systems and your conditioning, everything needs to be smartly planned and periodized. If you are just doing the same stuff, working on conditioning all year round, thinking you're working on power, you're not training smart. You're not going to maximize your athletic potential. Remember, power and strength and cardiovascular endurance, they are competing energy systems. You will not be able to maximize them both at the same time. So in certain parts of the season or the year, you need to prioritize one more than the other, and then prioritize the other more than the other when you get closer to your competition. So I hope those tips were helpful. If you have any questions, hit me up, let me know, and be sure to watch the next video.